Hey guys, Tyler Dempsey here, drummer and educator from Clark Summit, Pennsylvania. This is a follow up video to one that I posted last week where I asked if anybody had any questions or concerns with their playing that they'd like help with. And we got some great questions that came in. I appreciate you taking the time to share what you're going through as a drummer. And I'd like to take a minute right now and kind of read through the questions and answer them to the best of my ability. I hope this helps. Stay tuned. All right, first question comes from Dale, all the way down in New Orleans, Louisiana. Longtime fan, first time caller. I like that. I'd really like to improve my speed, especially in my left hand. Any concepts, ideas, methods would be well received. Thanks. So, when I think about developing speed, if any of my students come in and they want to work on their speed, the first thing I want to make sure is that your technique is operating correctly. So you want to make sure you're holding the sticks correctly. You want to make sure that you're not holding too much tension in your wrists or your arms. You want to make sure all your fingers are on the stick. There's some basic technical things that you want to kind of go through like a checklist and make sure all of those things are cool. Now, assuming that all of that is straight, some things that helped me over the years was anytime I was doing any mindless activity, whether I was on the computer or watching TV, I would have my hand going on a practice pad, especially my left hand because I'm a righty. I had that trouble as well trying to get some stamina in the left hand, get some strength in the left hand. So oftentimes I would take a practice pad and then I would take a towel and put it over the practice pad to offer a little bit more resistance, a little less bounce. And what I would do is I would just go through the motion of playing a stroke, whether it be wrist strokes. Now I'm holding it traditional here, but wrist strokes or finger strokes. I would just do that constantly while I was doing something mindless, so I didn't really have to think about it. Of course, on the practice pad, there's a variety of different things you can do. I would recommend starting a lot of your exercises with your left hand. Try to make it as dominant as possible. We tend to, as righties, start everything with our right hand. Put some of the responsibility on the left hand. Try to start all your phrases with the left hand. You'll find that it's difficult at first, but the more ambidextrous we can get, the easier it'll be to bring both hands up in speed. The other thing I like to do from time to time is I would do short bursts of speed on the practice pad. So obviously you don't want to push yourself to the point where you injure something, but say you play singles, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left. You get it to a comfortable speed, you maintain it, and then you push just a short burst of speed and then back down. You continually do that. And I liken it to weightlifting. You know, you're just pushing yourself a little bit to try to get some strength. Push it, push it, push it, and eventually your speed threshold will inch its way up slowly. Okay, so start your exercises with the left hand. Try eliminating some of the bounce off your practice pad and offer a little resistance, whether it be a towel, a pillow, something like that. And then practice short bursts of speed, and then back down. And do that every day, and I think you'll see an improvement. I hope that helps. All right, next question comes from Jake, and he writes, "This is a general question about encouraging my young son, who's only 3, who has a small drum set and loves to play. He practices 1 to 2 hours a day. I know he's still a few years away from being able to receive formal instruction, but I was curious to hear your insights on teaching kids the drums and general age or age range when it would be appropriate to start taking lessons." Well, that's awesome to hear. I always love hearing kids being excited about the drums, especially at such a young age. That's awesome, and I'm sure everybody checking out this video had a smile on their face when they heard that. And so I think the best thing that you could do at this point is keep him excited about the drums, keep him engaged, and keep it fun. We want to try to avoid any type of burnout. Anytime that the drums feel like work leads to kids being burnt out. So let's try to keep it fun and engaging and exciting. And I think that part of what you can do with this is help him discover some of the legendary drummers that we all look up to. And whether that be by checking out recordings or YouTube videos, find a drummer or a handful of drummers that resonates with him, that he can start really diving into and becoming a fan of, and ultimately start walking down the path of modeling himself after these drummers. I think that's a really important part of learning the drum language, is the modeling phase, where you're trying to emulate people that you really enjoy their drumming. And so if he could start that at a young age in lieu of instruction at this point, I think that would be very beneficial. Now, if you have any knowledge of drums yourself, you could also encourage him and help him technically, and anything that you see that might not be correct, you could kind of gently nudge him in the right direction. If you don't have those resources, you could always reach out to somebody like me, and I'd be happy to help you with that. In terms of the age for lessons, that's kind of a sliding scale with me, and it really depends solely on focus. If a student could sit through with a general amount of focus for a half-hour lesson, I'll teach them for sure. The focus is the issue. When I teach a student that young, most of the times I sprinkle in a good deal of fun amongst the information that we need to work on. So I make sure that the half hour isn't all, focused, like we need to hold the sticks like this, we need to work on this exercise. I make sure that there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel. There's some fun sprinkled in there to keep him excited, to feed him the information that he needs, but also have some fun with it. So that would be my recommendation. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions in terms of technical stuff that you can kind of be nudging him in the right direction. But I think he's got a great start. 3 years old, already playing 2 hours a day. That's awesome. Let's keep it fun and exciting, and I can't wait to hear him a few years down the road. All right, next one's from Chris, great drummer from Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania. He writes, I've never been good at playing a hi-hat rhythm on the ands with my foot, independent of what I'm playing on the rest of the kit. For example, the intro and verses to 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. I could do it on 1, 2, 3, and 4, but my brain can't separate the left foot from other rhythms. He's always impressed by drummers who can solo while the entire time keeping a rhythm with their left foot. So, Chris, obviously this is a coordination barrier that would need to be broken, okay? And it's a common one. And what I recommend when somebody comes to me with coordination issues is, rather than jumping in the deep end and trying to just start your foot on offbeats and solo around the drums, what I would do is kind of simplify to the best of our ability and to slow down. So since you're such an experienced drummer, I think that singles, doubles, and paradiddles are a good place to start. Mainly because your brain doesn't necessarily have to put a lot of mental energy in thinking about those stickings. So I would take those one at a time on the snare drum and play your offbeat hi-hat along with them. So you'll really see with singles, playing them at an eighth note rate, how the hi-hat lines up really easily. As we get to doubles and paradiddles, maybe a little bit more difficult, but your body will kind of get centered and it will start to really feel much easier coordination-wise. I always love sitting across from a student when they're working on some type of coordination issue and they're struggling with it. We slow it down, we simplify, and then all of a sudden it just clicks and they're aligned, and then their body is used to the sensation that it hadn't been just before. So that's kind of what happens with coordination. We're asking our body to do something we're not used to. We're asking our mind to do something that we're not used to. And I look at it as a barrier that we have to break down. Once we do that and simplify, like singles, doubles, and paradiddles, I think that your body will be more receptive to being able to work towards even more complex stickings and then moving them around the kit. Your body just has to get used to the feeling of those offbeats going along with any sticking that you choose. So I hope that helps. Singles, doubles, paradiddles, start with eighth notes. Get your hi-hat going on the offbeats. Then push it to 16th notes. It's going to be a slightly different sensation. Once you get those, I think you can kind of start improvising a little bit around the drums, and it should flow a little bit easier because you spent that time slowly and simply. So hope that works. Interesting observation from Zach, who's a music teacher. He talks about how students are not getting exposed to live music, which is resulting in a lack of motivation to play the drum set. He sees a lot of students focusing solely on snare drum and mallets for their concert band and marching band, but not focusing on drum set. And he understands that those skill sets are important. However, studying drum set also cultivates an expansive understanding of style, time, listening, etc. And he's asking if any of us out here deal with that issue with students and feels as though just a few years ago it was the complete opposite, where everybody wanted to study drum set. And although I don't currently have that issue, most of the students that come to see me want to play the drum set, and that's their main focus. I ask my students in the very early beginnings of our relationship what your goal is and what's the motivation to start playing the drums. And most of them want to eventually play, whether it be with their friends or with a band or something like that. I could see how a lack of exposure to live music could result in a lack of interest because, for me, seeing people play live was a real catalyst in the beginning, and I'm also seeing, although I'm not seeing a lack of exposure to live music, I'm seeing a lack of exposure to studying the history of music. I'd say a vast majority of my students come in not knowing the name of any drummer. And, I liken it to a kid who's playing baseball who likes to be involved in the activity, however, isn't necessarily a fan of baseball to the point where they watch it on TV. They have a favorite team. They collect the baseball cards. So I think there's a case of that going on sometimes with my students where they're interested in just learning the drums, not necessarily interested in becoming a fan of the drums and drummers and music, and that could obviously cause some issues progressing. But I think it's a completely valid point that, if you're not exposed to live music, it's a little difficult to get excited and to find the motivation to pursue an instrument that's primarily for live music. All right, guys, I'm going to finish up this video with a question from my cousin Corey, who's actually the reason that I play the drums in the first place. He's been a huge source of inspiration and motivation as a person and a drummer, and he's really been encouraging along my journey, so I appreciate that. And he writes, I'm a longtime drummer, first-time dad. Right now, I could only set aside about 15 to 20 minutes of focused practice daily. He plays in a rock band that rehearses once a week, so he gets about 2 hours of kit time in a week. And he's noticed that his hands aren't as in good shape as they used to be, and his fluidity when it comes to improv, jamming, etc. has gone downhill. He has a modest practice kit at home, but it's quickest and easiest to get to the drum pad. He's wondering what he can do in 15 to 20 minutes to address the decline in these two areas. So when I have limited time to practice, the first thing I do is ask if there's any pressing issues. Usually for me, that means, is there any music that I need to learn? Is there anything that needs to be addressed? Perhaps in my last rehearsal, last performance, was there anything that I didn't quite grasp that I need to fix immediately? So assuming there's no pressing issues and you have a clean slate, my recommendation is always to go back to the basics. I feel as though I could practice singles, doubles, and paradiddles for the rest of my life and see constant improvement on that because, there's just so much room to grow when it comes to that and rudiments in general and your hands in general that going back to the basics would be my suggestion. Now, say you pick a few rudiments that you want to focus on each day. One way that you can practice your flow and fluidity is kind of limiting yourself to picking, say, 2 to 3 rudiments, putting on a piece of music, a song that you enjoy listening to, and work on flowing between these rudiments in a musical way. This way you're practicing your improvisation, you're practicing your flow, and you can not only flow between the rudiments, but also flow between the rate of speed in which you're playing each one of these rudiments. And I think that even though it's not like being on the drum kit, I think that you'll be hitting kind of 2 birds with 1 stone with this. You'll be working on your hands with these rudiments, but you'll also be working on your flow and using the song as a musical glorified metronome. So you're pulling some of the musicality from the song and reacting to it with your hands, but you're also using it as a metronome to practice. So that would be my suggestion. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'm sure I'll do another one soon. And check out next week. There's going to be another tip. So stay tuned.